Thomas S. Kidd's biography of the great British revivalist George Whitefield, 1714 to 1770. George Whitefield, America's spiritual founding father, outlines the challenges and conflicts of the Great Awakening. It was a time of great spiritual revival and theological controversy. And Whitefield's arrival in America in November of 1739 was marked by audiences of tens of thousands of colonial Americans in Philadelphia, Charleston, Boston, Newport, and smaller towns in New England. I focused on the 6th chapter of Kidd's book entitled To Revive the Flame Again, Whitefield Comes to New England. Whitefield's itinerant preaching throughout 1740 was an effort to save souls not only among white men and women, but among slaves as well. Whitefield was interested in raising money for an orphanage near Savannah to be called Bethesda. He hoped that the orphans in his care could be raised to be pious Christian citizens. Whitefield's methods for raising the orphans was strict, and some believed designed to indoctrinate the children into the Methodist mindset. The tensions between Mr. Whitefield's beliefs in the sufficiency of grace and faith rather than works put him on a collision course with the dominant Anglican Church in Virginia and the Congregationalist Puritans of New England. Whitefield's arrival in Philadelphia in April 1740 was accompanied by a series of 3 letters he sent to his friend, the printer Benjamin Franklin. While Franklin was no evangelical, he maintained a lifelong friendship with the British preacher, noting Whitefield's amazing ability at drawing out monetary contributions from his rapt listeners. Thousands of women, men, and children were reduced to tears by Whitefield's exhortations and altar calls. However, the loud and vociferous wailing exhibited by the congregations offended the staid establishmentarians of the Church of England and the Puritans, who were known for their pious stoicism. Whitefield sent the letters to Benjamin Franklin to be printed in the Pennsylvania Gazette. The letters covered 2 topics. First, the teachings of the late Archbishop of Canterbury, John Tillotson, 1630 to 1694, whose views on the necessity of both faith and works for salvation were widely read and respected by Anglicans. And 2, Whitefield's criticism of the institution of slavery, the treatment of slaves, and the unwillingness of Southern slave owners to teach their slaves the gospel. Whitefield was so certain about the sufficiency of God's grace and conversion to wipe away sins that he questioned even the salvation of Tillotson and other contemporaries who disagreed with him. In England, Whitefield had reached an impasse with his fellow preacher John Wesley, and throughout his travels in 1740 in the colonies, his attacks on a man who had been dead for almost 50 years prompted pastors to ban him from their pulpits. Whitefield famously claimed Tillotson knew, quote, no more of true Christianity than Muhammad, unquote. Such attacks won him no friends at Harvard College or Yale, as Tillotson worked with Increase Mather to form a new charter for Massachusetts during his lifetime. Banned in certain Philadelphia churches, Whitefield turned his attentions to the dissenters, Presbyterians, Baptists, and other denominations. Whitefield's letter attacking the horrible treatment of slaves by owners in Maryland, Virginia, and the Carolinas decried the, quote, miseries of the poor Negroes, end quote, and wondered why the slaves did not revolt against the cruelty. In reality, Whitefield did not question slavery as an institution. In fact, he favored the introduction of slavery into Georgia to achieve settlement there and to build his orphanage. His objections revolved around the unbiblical way that American slaveholders treated African Americans on a par with animals, refused to allow them to learn and read the gospel, refused to allow them to convert to Christianity, and honor the Sabbath. By 1740, European laws precluding converted Christians from enslavement were already in full force. However, Virginia had already twice legislated. The conversion to Christianity did not automatically mean emancipation. Accordingly, Whitefield attempted to build a school for African Americans that could assist with the spiritual and physical health of slaves. He purchased a 5,000-acre tract of land north of Philadelphia to be called Nazareth. He imported Moravian carpenters from his Georgia project, the orphanage, into Pennsylvania, and Whitefield soon realized that he was at theological odds with the men building his school. He pulled the plug on the operation, abandoned the project, and sold the land to the Moravians, who established what became known as the Pennsylvania Dutch settlements. Whitefield's spiritual certainty, even pride, coupled with his rather pragmatic views on the peculiar institution of the South, ensured that he would remain controversial in the Americas. His emotional brand of proselytizing, his enraptured audiences, who may have exhibited outward gifts of the Spirit not unlike what is seen in Pentecostal worship today, his friendships and rivalries with Jonathan Edwards and the Anglican Congregationalist establishment in colonial cities, show a remarkably charismatic man of the gospel whose emphasis on faith, grace, and the freedom to worship as one chooses set the stage for political liberty as a means of maintaining religious freedom. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. My name is Richard Lucas. Good night.